So, this was how Claire would die. She knew it would happen eventually. She was rubbish at jumping, and she moved slowly. She felt a little like her continued existence was breaking some kind of natural order. The crumbling pillar was a dramatic death, she supposed. Wait, what? Claire couldn't shake the feeling that she was not, in fact, dead. It was at that moment that Claire realised she had superpowers!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am SocioPsycho, and this is Mob Reviews. And today we will be looking at Thomas Was Alone. This was created by Mike Breffel, available for PC and Mac. It is a platformer game, very simplistic platforming, so it doesn't scare away anybody who may not be overly familiar with that genre. It's very simple in what it asks of the player, and very fair in the failure state should you not be able to accomplish it the first time around. But it is not just a platforming game, it is also a narrational story-led game that is meant to invoke a sense of caring where you would think that you would not. In a graphical style of game which is very simplistic, you would think no story or amount of story could actually get you to care about the well-being of little blocks. And you would be wrong. So let us start by going into the settings options of the game. Now you do have volume, FX, and music all on different sliders, which is very nice because the music in the game perfectly sets the atmosphere throughout the entire course of the game. But sometimes that may be too loud and you might have to adjust that so you can better hear the narrational value of a game. You have a large variation of screen resolutions, and I've had no issues with it being in 1920 by 1080. It has been running at 60 frames per second with no issues, no clipping, crashing, or tearing of any sort. Graphically, the game is very simplistic. It's a 2D style platformer, and it is not something that is overly complicated in how it looks, but how it makes you feel is where the kicker comes in. Graphically, very basic, but that's perfectly fine. The movement keys are very simplistic as well. You basically have jump and your arrow keys to move. There's not a whole need for a large rebindable key selection, but you can easily rebind the keys that you do have. So let us go into the actual game, and we'll start very simplistic by talking about the platforming element in the game. While the platforming element of a game does tie into the story rather well and hand in hand, the different characteristics or blocks that you'll have as you progress through these different levels need to work in tandem together. One may be able to carry others across water, or one will be able to jump higher. You will need to use the other blocks as steps, or to get across certain areas. Now, it is pretty simplistic in the viewer or viewership of what the blocks do, but you can see that it's not all that complicated. All I can really inform you upon the platforming element of a game is that it is not one that is overly complicated. It is very simplistic. It's very welcoming to people who are new or perhaps don't necessarily enjoy platforming games overly too much. Obviously, you have to have some degree of leniency in able to play the game in the first place, otherwise any platforming element will just annoy you. The game is very fair as it does have checkpoint systems spread out among the different levels, so if you come across an area and you fail, you have a reassurance of knowing that the failure state that you have been reselected back to is not that far. This is very important. One reason being is because it is allowing the doors open to all sorts of players. but it's also tying into a story by not breaking immersion, because if you're dying 20 times, you're going to get frustrated, and if you have to start back over at the beginning of a level each time you die, you'll easily get broken out of your immersion of gameplay. It does a very fine job in the platforming sense of the game to balance the gains versus the effort. At no time did I feel the platforming was unfair or unjust. In some aspects, due to how the pieces that you're able to maneuver do require to work together in order to get to a higher ledge or across a dangerous area, it does seem a little bit like a puzzle, but the way you manipulate the characters still remains within platforming regulations. It can be a game with great satisfaction as you continue to come up against new challenges, but never feel overwhelmed or never feel as if your time is being wasted, that every move or step you take is one more of adventure, not repetitiveness or endless reusage of some variation. And that ties into the story pretty heavily. While the story is spoken to as a narrational sense as you progress through the game, it is done so in a manner which really makes you connect with the character. Now, this would not be possible if it wasn't for the terrific job that was accomplished in the voice acting. The words and the written dialogue do obviously need to be correct, but the way it's carried out in such a perfect harmony with the music, the voice acting really resonates with the player and drives an emotional connection which you may not actually expect while you play the game. It's very rare for a game to tell a story in such a gripping way that you will immediately, or soon follow, be hooked, and it will start to pull at your heartstrings. You find yourself not only just continually wanting to know what happens next, where's the danger, what will happen in between the characteristics and the story of the different characters. Will this one be okay? Will that one not be? The sorrow and misery, but the joy and happiness. It does a very fine job at conveying its message across.
Claire probably needed a nemesis, a villain who would show their true colours at the worst possible moment, hurting all she held dear. Chris was the most obvious choice. He seemed stroppy enough, and his jump was so pathetic that it conveniently avoided Claire's insecurities. Yes, Chris. Diabolical Chris. The fiendish Christopher.
So at the end of the day, while the game may not be 20 plus hours, while it may not have AAA graphics, and while it may not have thousands of lines of dialogue, and it may be very simplistic in the platforming element or the puzzle element of a game, still challenging and fair at times, but simple and fair, it offers something that you don't see very often. It offers a sense of adventure in its purest form, an experience that games always seek to obtain, an experience of a game being true art. Not just a measly toy or distraction, but the capability to tell a tale and weave the player emotionally around and into it. The ability to make you care what happens next and makes you want to play to find out. I am happy that I have the opportunity to play this game, that I come across this game, that I've found out about this game. And I'm happy to offer that same chance to anybody who sees this review. So yes, I can gladly recommend this game because it's not every day we get a piece like this, which is truly art. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening and watching. For I've been SocioPsycho, and I'll see you next time.